Human trafficking is something that has probably had a need to be addressed for a long time, since human trafficking is a chronic problem that has existed probably for as long as we have laws on the books. But it has just recently, as of AB 22, which was passed in 2005, become its own criminal charge here in California.
There's a lot of gaps in the law, mainly because human trafficking right now is mostly conflated with sex trafficking. So labor exploitation is left out a lot, which is quite interesting because the ILO, International Labor Organization, finds that there's 9 times as many cases of labor exploitation as there are sexual exploitation.
We basically have to prove a charge, and then for purposes, in order to convict on pimping and pandering, and then we have to prove additional elements in order to make it human trafficking. And the payout, frankly, doesn't always warrant all of this extra effort, because pimping and pandering itself carries a penalty, I think, of 3, 4, or 6 years in state prison, whereas human trafficking carries a penalty of 3, 4, or 5 years in state prison.
I think that in order to make the public more aware of what's actually going on in the world pertaining to human trafficking and modern-day slavery, we really need to address it on multiple fronts. With globalization and all that and the internet, it's becoming increasingly hard to identify trafficked victims, because being able to use the internet, they're not in brothels where they have the sign. It's much more difficult to identify.
AB 22 is a huge step in the right direction. It is a huge advancement by having a law that criminalizes human trafficking, but I think there is a lot of negotiations in terms of getting legislation passed, and with all sides coming to the table, there's more work to be done in terms of making it consistent with the other charges that we have to prove that serves as a basis for human trafficking. So, I mean, you would think that because human trafficking is more severe than pimping and pandering, since it already includes pimping and pandering, that the penalties would be higher, but they're not.
If we train the immigration officers and authorities in the area to recognize trafficking, they can stop it before it actually happens.